Hi there to everybody at the RSM team. This is Graham Codrington, and just ahead of our session together on the 5th of October, I thought I'd save some time in the session by giving you a few opening thoughts, if you like. Thinking about the future, thinking about the disruption that we're facing, just to get you into the right frame of mind for our conversation on the 5th. You see, right now, we're obviously dealing with a COVID disruption, a crazy disruption to our world. But I think that there are three things that we need to consider. The first is about finding our COVID pace, as I like to call it. You see, if we had tried to predict what this year would have been like, if I had spoken to you in January and told you what 2020 would hold, you would have probably told me it was impossible. We wouldn't be able to get it done. And yet here we are, and in the middle of a COVID crisis which has impacted different parts of the world in different ways, whether it's a lockdown with curfews, whether there's a second wave coming, whether there's been some argument and controversy about physical distancing and mask wearing and some of the regulations that have been imposed or not, we have been disrupted and deeply disrupted all around the world. And yet we've been able to deliver. Many of our clients, many of your member firms have been able to shift quite quickly, have been able to pretty much get back to the type of delivery, the type of engagement that they wouldn't have believed what was possible if we had told them what was going to happen. But we've done it. We're working from home, we've created new technologies, we're getting used to this kind of virtual meeting. Quite impressive. But there's a problem. Maybe I can illustrate the problem this way. A number of years ago, I started running. I was never a sporty person growing up, but when I hit my 40s, I realized I needed to make sure that I kept myself fit and healthy, and because of all of my travel, running was the easiest way to do that. Just shoes and some running kit in your travel bag, and you can run in any city. And I surprised myself. I got quickly to that park run 5 kilometer, then 10Ks, then even a half marathon 21 kilometer route. I was actually surprisingly enjoying running that distance. So I decided to push myself to the marathon and managed to get an entry to the 2020 London Marathon, which I was really excited about and be my first big iconic marathon. And I asked runners who had been running for years and years and years for their advice. And if you're a seasoned runner, you will know what advice they gave me, because every single person I asked gave me exactly the same advice. They said, if you're a seasoned runner, you'll know what they said: don't start too quickly. You get to the starting line, you're fit, you're ready, you're good to go. The gun goes, there's music, there's thousands of other runners with you, there's crowds every step of the way. Super exciting, the adrenaline is flowing, and you can run out and you feel brilliant for 5Ks, for 10Ks, maybe even at the half marathon mark at 21Ks, you're feeling fantastic. And that's why the seasoned marathon runners say the marathon really only begins at about the 35th kilometer. What do they mean by that? Well, if you've used up too much energy in the first portion of the race, you hit a wall at 35 kilometers and you just really don't have the energy. You might not even finish. And if you do, you're going to finish slowly and painfully. Great advice for marathon running. Sadly, the London Marathon was cancelled, of course, this year. I'll be running the virtual London Marathon on the day before we meet. It's on the 4th of October, and I plan to do 42Ks on that Sunday. You can see what I look like when we meet on the 5th. I might be a bit rough. I might be sitting down while we're talking rather than standing. But that's the plan. Here's the point, of course, of the analogy. Have we run out of our COVID starting blocks too fast? I think it's been very impressive, the way we've been able to work this year. But if you look around at yourself and at your colleagues, you'll realize that you are running fast at the moment, or running hard at least, even if not fast. We're putting in a lot of energy and a lot of effort to produce the results we're producing. And if the only thing we're doing is telling each other how brilliant we are for our productivity, for our delivery, but not taking account of the strain it's putting on our system, I think we're going to be in trouble. I think that there are going to be quite a few people who might survive the COVID disease and then get hit with all sorts of other stress-related diseases, from heart attacks to cancer. And I'm being serious about this. This is not the stuff I normally talk about, but I'm becoming more and more passionate about helping us to just have the conversation about what is the appropriate COVID pace to be running at. And the reason for that is the second of the three things I want to just share with you to get you thinking, is because the disruption is not finished. The COVID disruption is not finished. In the UK right now, as I record this, the UK is going back into a form of lockdown with curfews and restrictions of movement. France has just announced that they are probably going to go back into some form of lockdown with curfews and restrictions of movements. Israel's back in full lockdown. Melbourne in Australia is now had a few weeks of going back to curfews and lockdowns. Mexico is busy talking about it at the moment. There's second wave considerations. The Nobel Prizes have, the ceremonies have been cancelled this weekend, all going live. And that's in Sweden, a place that famously didn't lock down in the first place, and now being hit with a second wave again. So we might be finished with COVID, but COVID is nowhere finished with us. And so there's a COVID pace. We're not halfway through this disruption. But that's not what I want us to think about on the 5th. I want us to go even a step further than that, and to realize that all of the disruptions that we've been thinking about for a while, I've been working with RSM for a number of years now, and we've been having these conversations. Artificial intelligence, automation, machine learning, blockchain technologies, cloud, mobility, and the list goes on and on in terms of digital transformations coming our way. Then you add to that issues around climate change and sustainability, and shifts in consciousness in the world, and that's still coming our way. Then you've got geopolitical shifts taking place. Forget what's happening just in nations, between nations. You've still got the US-China trade war. As I record this, Donald Trump has gone to the United Nations a few hours or a day or two ago, and it's like beaten China again. China used their time to commit themselves to being carbon zero, or neutral maybe. I don't think they used the word zero, but carbon neutral at least, by 2060. I mean, it was remarkable, the speeches this week at the United Nations. And then inside nations, so you've got between nations, you've got the trade war, you've got China and India threatening a war with each other, all sorts of geopolitics going on. Then inside nations, you've got a US election coming up this year, you've got Brexit still being dealt with, etc., etc. Just all around the world, there are deep disruptors and chaos. And those disruptors, many of them have actually been accelerated by COVID. A lot of people knew that automation and the virtual world and digital transformation was coming our way. It's coming even faster now because of COVID, and issues of disruption in terms of working from home, changing the way that we engage with clients. You know all of this, but it's important for us to remind ourselves that we cannot just focus on dealing with the COVID crisis. We've got to deal with all the other disruptors coming our way. And when we chat together on the 5th, I'm going to suggest to you that COVID is just a dress rehearsal for deeper and more significant disruptive forces coming our way in the rest of the 2020s. Yes, COVID feels like a massive disruptor, and it is. But I think bigger disruptors are yet to come. I think if we really understand what things like blockchain and automation and software algorithms and machine learning, data analytics, predictive analytics, if we really understand what that's going to do to many of our clients, and if we truly understand what that's going to do to tax and to consulting and to auditing, to the profession, if we truly understand that, COVID's not nothing, but there's a lot more to come. So what we need to try and do is not merely survive the COVID crisis. We need to use the COVID crisis to build our responsiveness to disruption, to actually use this COVID period to work out what it actually means to deal with disruption, not just survive but thrive during times of chaotic change. Which leads then to the third and final point I want to just put in your head before we get together and chat through things. And that is that I think that the correct attitude right now is not merely to try and rebuild what we had as we head however long and whatever the path is to get out the end of the COVID crisis. We mustn't be desperate to go back to normal, to try and get back to the way things were. We need to use the opportunity of this disruption to reimagine, don't just rebuild, rather reimagine the future. And that's essentially why we're getting together on the 5th of October, is not to find a way through the crisis and get back to normal as soon as possible, but rather to use the crisis period that we're in to open our minds to the types of innovations we have been talking about for some time. So we're not suddenly starting a journey. We were on a journey, and we're just realizing that this journey provides, I think, a wonderful opportunity for us to accelerate some of the things that we have been thinking about in terms of innovation and change to the profession and to the RSM firms and network. So that's what we're going to talk about, and that's kind of where I'm coming from. So now I don't have to give this lengthy introduction on the 5th. We can just dive in. And won't you please come to the meeting thinking about what you believe some of the lasting legacies of the COVID disruption will be. So there's many different ways in which our firms and our clients have been disrupted during COVID. And I know there might be slight variations in different parts of the world, but you just think about your part of the world and think about, in terms of the disruptions you've experienced in the last 6 months, some of them will snap back. As soon as possible, we'll go back to the way things were. But I think many, many more things are going to continue and will remain disrupted. Your easiest example here is the office, right? Even those people who do go back to the office, during this COVID disruption, we've changed our default setting, for lack of a better word. Maybe the default setting before was you have to be at the office unless there's a compelling reason to be elsewhere. And then you can be elsewhere if you want to, but come back to the office as soon as possible. I think the default setting has now shifted to you don't have to be at the office. I don't think the revolution is a work from home revolution. I think many people don't want to be stuck at home, and the working from home thing is not brilliant and working for them. But I think it will be a work from anywhere revolution. And I think people will be more comfortable working in remote locations, working from home sometimes, and certainly people will be a lot more comfortable with flexibility. So not coming into the office during rush hour, coming in later, staying for fewer hours, only coming in on a few days. In other words, the default setting in the future will be You don't have to be in the office unless there's a compelling reason to be there. And then when we do come back to the office, let's not just come back to the office in the same way that it was. I'm speaking to people all around the world who are saying, oh, I'm missing the office so much. And I ask them, what are you missing about the office? And the most common response is people say, oh, I just miss the interaction with other people. I miss being able to just walk over to a colleague and just chat to them at their desk and get a quick answer to a question. I laugh whenever people say that because I'm an extreme introvert. Even when I have worked in an office, I've worked from home for many, many years, but when I did work in an office, I would put all the pot plants and shift the desk in such a way to indicate to people I really don't want to be interfered with. I'm not a big fan of open plan offices. So for every person like you who's saying, oh, I just want to be able to get back to the office to go and chat to my colleagues, there's someone like me saying, is she coming over to chat to me again? The disruption in my day, and I'm not missing those disruptions at all. I'm exaggerating for effect, of course, but the point I'm trying to make is that I think we've already romanticized what we're missing at the office. And so have the conversation with your team, right? Speak to your team, ask them what they are missing about the office, and then make sure you get it when and if you do go back to the office. So don't just rebuild. Don't just go back to the office the way that it was. Use the opportunity of the disruption to have the conversation, to think about what maybe the office should look like so that we can get the benefits of the things we really feel we're missing. Does that make sense to you? To have that conversation with your team. And if we do that for 10 things, for 50 things, for 100 things across the way we work, the way we interact, the way we communicate, how we have meetings, how we connect with clients, value that we add to our clients. If we do that in multiple ways, we'll spark innovation throughout the system. We'll change things. And that's the point of our conversation on the 5th of October. So please come to that conversation with a few examples in your mind of ways in which COVID will leave a lasting legacy on the world and ways in which COVID might accelerate some of the other disruptors coming our way. We need to find our COVID pace in the system. We need to realize that we might be finished with COVID, but COVID is not finished with us yet. There are more disruptors coming our way, COVID disruptors and other disruptors. And so we are needing to learn how to reimagine our contribution, reimagine the value we add to our teams, to our clients, reimagine the whole profession rather than just rebuilding. Looking forward to our conversation on the 5th of October. I'll see you there.